Hello, welcome to the Incredible Hulk podcast. And we're talking this time about the season 2 story called The Quiet Room, which was again written by the writing team of Karen Harris and Jill Sherman and directed by Riza Espadilli. I'll never get that guy's name right. Co-starred Joanna Miles as Dr. Hill, Philip Abbott as Dr. Morrow, Robert F. Lyons as Sam, and Sian Barbara Allen as Kathy Allen. Just a couple of things of note here, actually, because it, as we've spoken about a few times before, it's quite a habit of some of the writers to drop in some of the production staff names, and in fact, they do it twice in this one. Right at the beginning, in this opening scene, over the tannoy, you hear a woman ask for Dr. Snyder. And Dr. Snyder is actually Andrew Snyder, one of the series writers. And later on, there's a Dr. Caldwell who comes down the steps to talk to Dr. Hill. And that's actually after Stephen P. Caldwell, the associate producer of the series. So you got a double whammy in this one, 2 name drops rather than 1, which is quite unusual. So there's another in-joke they put in to name check the people that work on it. I'm joined by my 2 friends and colleagues here, Sue and Alex. So welcome to you both.
Hello. Thank you.
And right, so you mentioned that opening scene, guys. That it's set in a sanitarium, and David has obviously been working there a little while, as you can see.
Yeah, his name is David Ballin, and he's like an orderly for the sanitarium.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
the doctor is working on overcoming anger issues with people. So
yeah,
there's actually 2 doctors. There's a lady, and then her supervisor is doing something nefarious, but we'll get to that later.
But as I say, in this section, David is seeing this patient out, this young guy called Tommy, who's actually going home. He's been released, as it were, and his parents are waiting outside for him. And the young man tells David about his previous. He was a pyromaniac, setting fires and stuff. And he was talking about since he went and undergo this kind of therapy from Dr. Morrow. That's the other doctor we're talking about. Who's doing these experiments. He found himself with this box of matches and found himself not being able to go through with it. So apparently it was kind of like aiding in his rehabilitation, so much so that he's now leaving the place, seemingly cured of his condition, you know. So he can't sing the praises of Dr. Morrow enough. So he's leaving, and that's when Dr. Hill tells David about Tommy, saying everything was tried for him. He went through all sorts of things, and none of it worked, apart from whatever program Dr. Morrow was implementing.
And so he's witnessing a change, and then he wants to get involved, so he ends up being injected with something, and it made him mad.
Yeah, there's a patient in there called Kathy Allen who has a fit, and she has these kind of fits of aggression, which just sort of strikes out, and it turns out that she does have one of these in I think it's like the patient's sort of TV room that they're in. They're all sitting around in there, like a lounge area, I think, and she pushes over the television and then starts swaying this chair around at everyone. And the orderlies come in. I think she knocks one of them over the head with a chair. He goes down, and then so all the guys are rushing in to try and calm her down, with little success. And then Dr. Morrow walks in, and he seems to be the only one that kind of can get through to her. And he calms the situation down, and they're asking, how did she get out of her room? And then you've got this character in it who's quite funny, this guy called Houdini.
Oh, yeah.
One of the guys in there, one of the patients, who can kind of seemingly get out of anything, out of any locked room. And he got her out of her room. So he's been told off. And they said, well, we're going to confine you to your quarters. And said, it's all right, I'll get out of there as well. He wasn't one bit bothered. So
Yeah.
I thought that was quite funny.
He becomes an ally of...
He does. Later on, he becomes a good ally of David. Yeah, he does. It comes in really useful. He does, actually. Even what he thinks are good reasons, but ultimately it doesn't work. But then David's kind of interested in all what they've done on Kathy, asks her about her condition and so on. Dr. Hill tells David that, the committee, if they find out about Morrow's work, it would be a huge step forward for his funding and research. It'd be like something really exciting. So what's happening is Kathy is being prepped for her operation, this operation that he does on their brain area, which has been successful several times before. I think Tommy had the same thing. And anyway, it looks like...
I think they all did. I think all of
them, yeah.
Dr. Morrow's patients and Dr. Hill's patients are all in the same boat.
Yeah.
Except for Houdini.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't tried to do that to Houdini. But, yeah. Well, he probably escaped the operating theatre as well,
Very funny, Frank.
He'll get out of his restraints. It turns out later that Kathy's recuperating after the op, and the next morning comes, and David's like getting her prepared, getting her, her ready and that, and brings in breakfast and stuff. And just as he's leaving, she says thank you to him, and that's the first time she's spoken as well. So that was a big breakthrough. She's never spoken before, that we saw. She just sort of growled and screamed when she was angry, but she never uttered a word. And he's kind of quite taken aback by it. And anyway, she thanks him for his kindness and everything. Later, she's doing like these last tests, it seems, with Dr. Morrow. She's hot wired up on her brain with these electrodes, and she's doing these sort of tests and stuff, and all seems to be going really well. And so much so that she's her family come, and she's getting ready to leave. So that's like, since David's been there, there's been 2 patients that are successfully been treated and are now leaving to go home.
And he wants in on that. He's like really curious about it all.
Mm.
And he really grills Dr. Hill. And she starts to figure out that he's not just simply an orderly.
Yeah, she said, you seem to be you seem far too smart to be pushing a broom around, or something like that. She says, yeah. She said, I could tell you're not that kind. You're not that type. Something about you, Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think she upgrades his job or something. Anyway, David tells Sam, who's one of the staff there, that he just can you give us a few minutes break? I need to do something. And this is where he heads to Dr. Morrow's office, and he's just about to knock on the door, and the door opens a bit, and you can see like this TV monitor in there, TV set, which shows something that really troubles him. That young guy Tommy that was left, and Kathy are in the same room on the screen,
And he figures he finds the surgery and mind control.
Mind control. That's right. He's doing this sort of other side of things that he's been keeping quiet. You know.
And it's kind of like surgery, and it's kind of like mind control.
Yeah. So he's got the guy pointing a gun at Kathy and saying, "Shoot her," you know, and he pulls the trigger and it clicks, but nothing happens because the gun wasn't loaded. But David is obviously very, you know, quite stung by this and finds this really very questionable. And, you know, quizzes or grills, as you said, Dr. Morrow over it, and he gives his reasons and stuff, you know, and David's not buying it because he thinks it's just a cash-in, you know, at the expense of other people. He grabs the videotape that the content was on and runs out, you know.
Yep. He has evidence of this transgression and stuff, and so he puts it in his pocket in his or slides it into like his surgical gown or lab coat or whatever you want to call it that he's wearing, and he heads outside, but he's caught doing that, and the good doctor has a bunch of henchmen and a bunch of people sort of, you know, pulling strings and guarding things and stuff like that around the whole asylum, and he is chased around, and he finally ditches it in a bush.
Yeah.
Under, not too far, I mean within eyesight of the bloody asylum, which is, you know.
Yeah, it wasn't too far away. He's on the ground still, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm like wondering is why he didn't just like Hulk out and go through the fence.
Yeah.
But that's just, you know, here I am second guessing it and stuff. So that was my question.
Anyway, they knock him out, don't they? Because he's trying to get away and he's protesting. Later on, we see him again, and he's not looking too well, and he's on a. They got him strapped to a gurney with a straitjacket on.
Yep.
In this room,
in a padded room, right?
Yeah. And
a patient all of a sudden.
Yeah, he's like he's been medicated and everything, and you know, and as if he's like criminally insane or something, you know. Dr. Hill comes in with Sam and that, and he's pleading with her to look at this tape. You know, don't let him come near the other patients and stuff. You know, whatever. This Dr. Morrow is dangerous. You know. And all this, and he's protesting and getting more and more frustrated. But they're not really buying it, you know. And so they turn and leave. And next minute, he hulks out. And there's a nice bit with I like the bit where he's busting out of the straitjacket. That was quite good.
Yeah, that was really cool.
See it tearing down and splitting, and that's quite good. That was, yeah. So he gets out, and the patients are out on there like they're playing ball or something down. They let them out for certain times down the grounds and that. And suddenly they hear this crash, and he's thrown something through the window from the building. The Hulk come in, and this is what it was. What was it? Like a cabinet or something smashed the window, and the cabinet came flying down.
Yeah, file cabinet.
Something like that. Yeah, and the Hulk jumps out the window, and that was Manny Perry doing the stunt there, the jump. Dressed up as the Hulk, and then Lou lands, and he breaks down this brick wall, and yep. all the patients there. It reminded me at this point, for some reason, when they're all following him in that, it reminded me of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I don't know why, but I kept thinking about the patients in there, and Jack Nicholson's character, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he was like Jack Nicholson's character, because they all looked up to him, you know? So they're following him around like the Pied Piper. They're saying, get to the gate, you know? You can get out, my friend, and all this. He doesn't make it. He gets tired. The Hulk's coming to calm him down again. And sits on this sort of, I think, on a wall or something, and starts changing back. And all the patients witness the change. They witness the change in him
That's
going back to
right.
David, which I thought was quite cool.
And the Houdini guy gets the tape, or one of the guys finds a tape and starts to brings it to Dr. Hill, actually.
That's right. They're out in the ground. They're out in the grounds. This is after the whole, when when they get David back.
Yeah.
And David's now like, I think a bit of time's gone by, and David is like, he's got some strength back, and he's sort of pacing his room. He's walking up and down. He's still out of it a bit. He's not.
Yeah, but he's not in a straitjacket now.
He's not in a straitjacket.
But he has been returned to his room, and and so he's so one of the other patients finds the video cassette under the bush and hands it to Dr. Hill, and Dr. Hill watches it and confronts Dr. Morrow. And Dr. Morrow said, "Yeah, I do this stuff. Yeah, I'm pursuing this super unethical thing, and so what of it?" And so he tells her that she has to, be part of this and stuff. And so he sends her back in to address David, and so she's got a syringe full of liquid, and because of her confrontation with the doctor, she injects it into the pad, and David has to pretend like he's gone out.
Yeah, and she even loosens his wrist restraint as well.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah,
one of
totally.
them. Yeah. One of them, so you can get out or get up, rather. They all kind of leave, and she gives them like a knowing look, as she goes out the door.
Yep.
As if to say, go and get, do what you have to do, kind of thing. Turns out, of course, that she gives the tape to Sam, one of the orderlies, for him to keep safekeeping,
Yep.
So she does get it away from there. She gets it out of a drawer in the office, and Sam takes it away. But then she's caught by Morrow, because she was trying to make a call to get help,
Yep.
And he stops her, and just as she's making this call, and they grab her. The situation is that he's going to operate on her, do this operation on Dr. Hill.
Yeah,
against their wishes. But David's stuck in that room. He does get his restraints off, and he's trying to get out, but the door's locked. But luckily for him, in a way, there's a monitor screen on the wall that's actually showing the operating theatre.
Yeah.
Where Dr. Hill is, and they've got her on, strapped on the thing there, and are attempting to do this operation.
And
David, of course, is trying to ring for help. Luckily, there's a telephone in there as well, which is quite handy.
Yeah.
He's got the telly and the telephone, and but of course he's stuck in a line, like a waiting thing, and because you don't say the word queue over there, do you? You say line or something.
No, it's all right. But he's on hold with the police department, right?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
And that's so weird because that never happens anymore. But
back then it might have done that. Yeah.
I guess it kind of did in the 70s. But what a nightmare, right?
And she's been, and he's only got a matter of seconds or minutes to stop it. And
right.
If they bring you see the scalpel coming over and everything, and that and as soon as someone does answer him, which is typical, really, he's hulking out at that point.
Yeah. And they're like, "What do you want?" And what is this? And all he's doing is rah.
They're going, "What's the matter? Are you all right? Are you ill?" Are you all right, sir? What's happening? And all that, yeah. So anyway, he busts out and goes for he knocks a few walls down to get to the the theatre.
Yep.
And sorts out the fellas in there and that, and pushes over Morrow. He kicks a gurney at him or something, knocks him down. Gets her out of there. And again, the boys are all fascinated by him. You know, they're all guiding him out to the gates. You know, he stops and hands over Dr. Hill to Sam to take care of, which is good.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Sam is I think one of the people from the committee board had turned up. It's like a guy in a suit, and he's handed the tape to him to, you know, incriminate
Dr. Morrow.
So he's finally being caught out, you know. So that's all nice, and the Hulk breaks the gates down, and off he goes.
So here's what I think is that Dr. Morrow would be a really good long-term baddie, that he just gets worse and worse in prison and he becomes some sort of amazing villain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like an arch enemy, like a super villain. Anyway, that's just my thought on this subject right now. And Alex will express some of what he thought of the episode. Here he is.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure where they were going. I mean, I don't know if they were hinting at the, you know, which again they've done many times, of if it wasn't for the Hulk, you know, David would have been dead long ago, or if it's, you know, he was too civilized to fight and stuff. And I don't know if they were trying to maybe touch on, you know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or Sybil or whatever. And I didn't find a lot on this episode either. I mean, some people said it was unrealistic. I don't know how many people know about, you know, mental health care or anything like that, especially back in those days. I know that a couple of famous reporters and news magazines actually had to expose a lot of the stuff that occurred. However, once that happened and it was on TV, they did make some changes. I mean, it wasn't all, you know, gruesome, like being in, you know, a Turkish prison or all that stuff. So I wasn't quite sure where the episode was going. It's like I don't know if it was a mishmash or, you know, they were trying to show that, you know, David he may have been smart, but he didn't know how to fight them or whatever. I mean, there is some scary scenes in it too. So I mean, it's not a bad job, but I kind of wondered where the story was going per se. You know what I mean? And you know, I wasn't. I don't know. I just was sort of wondering where they were going, and I wasn't quite sure.
Turns out at the end, Kathy comes back, doesn't she, briefly to see Dr. Hill. I think that's one of the last scenes, and what's interesting is, even though she was meant to be like sort of rehabilitated in a way from all, you know, the whole thing, she still says that she gets these feelings of wanting to, you know, let rip.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is she fully cured, you know, if that's the case?
Well, no, and he was just using mind control.
Yeah.
And
so masking it, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was one of those relatable moments where David was relating to her, going, "Yeah, I feel the same way."
Yeah, but she says she's managing to sort of like curb those, you know, the actual anger itself. You know, she gets the feelings of it, but she manages to be able to restrain it when it's at the right point. You know, and I think Dr. Hill says, "Look, you're doing it on your own now," which is very admirable. You know, obviously with the help of her family and everything. You know, but so it's sort of a happy ending for her. You know, at least she's out and everything, you know, and she's not stuck in there anymore.
Right. And at least, and I'm glad David didn't have surgery done on his brain.
Yeah, because they were going to do, that's right, because they were going to do it to him next. I remember that now.
And I'm glad that Dr. Hill didn't end up dead or you know, operated on, lobotomized or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever Dr. Morrow had planned. he's such a scoundrel. Oh my gosh! But
He
yeah,
was. He was.
it was a quiet episode. It got like its name is right. Quiet room, yeah.
The Quiet Room. Yeah.
But it's weird because none of the rooms in that asylum were quiet. But the episode was not. There wasn't a car chase and some big guy beating on him with a sledgehammer or whatever. It was pretty I guess it's more you know fear based than violence based, right?
Yeah. The only kind of violence you got was like mostly just from the Hulk. You know.
And it wasn't. It was just like breaking stuff. It
Breaking
wasn't
stuff, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. And he threw a couple of people around, but it wasn't anything major.
right.
He was mostly property damage. Just
Right.
to get into where he needed to get to and get help or get people out or that kind of thing.
Right.
And so he had to break through some walls to get her quickly out of there because there was the clock was ticking, and she could have been killed. So it was all through urgency. And he doesn't like being confined anyway. So he'll break out of anything. That's just his natural instinct. But I quite like this one. It's one that I've had quite a few repeat viewings of. Actually, this one, along with a lot, many other ones I can mention.
Sure.
I just don't know. I don't know. It wasn't that action packed as such.
No.
But then again, they don't all have to be like that. I like the balance. You don't always have to have car chases and people beating the hell out of him and that. And all that to still sort of like to convey a story. Yeah. So it was all like in one place. It was a smaller cast as such. Well, speaking cast anyway. And I thought it was a pretty good one. I'm happy to say that after we finish here on this, I actually interviewed Joanna Miles, who played Dr. Hill. So you'll be able to hear that after this, guys.
Really cool.
I hope you like that.
Yeah, keep listening, guys.
Joanna's memory, we'll say, is about the Hulk is quite vague. I did have to try and prompt her a few times. But she did so much stuff back then. One of these hired actors that did a lot for one studio.
Busy. Right.
So therefore, they could be working on one thing and reading a script of another or shooting something all over the place.
She was everywhere.
That's what. So therefore, their memories of one particular show are quite distant. I hope you all enjoy that. And thank you guys for joining me, Sue and Alex.
Dear, you're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, we've just been discussing, of course, the season 2 story, The Quiet Room, and I have an actress with me who was in that story, who played Dr. Joyce Hill. It is none other than actress Joanna Miles. Joanna, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Joanna, you were born in France.
Yes.
To parents who were painters.
Right.
So did you at any point say to yourself, I think I would like to, explore that career as well?
Not really. I mean, maybe when I was a very small child, but no. They struggled, and I decided that wasn't a good possibility. I made the mistake of thinking that being an actress would be better, which of course it isn't. It's very tough too.
It is.
But,
it is.
I did all right at that, so it turned out it was a good choice. But both my parents wanted me to be an artist, and actually my mother was teaching at Oberlin, and there was a contest for the best artist of her students, and I submitted something and won. And I was 11 years old.
Oh, wow.
And they weren't terribly happy with the fact that I snuck in, But, no, I thought being an actress was a better deal. So I did that.
So when did you first, go into the business, as it were, the acting business?
Well, when I was a teenager, I would do plays. You know, I went to a boarding school in Vermont called Putney, and they had a theater department, and I would do plays with them. And then in the summertime, I went to the neighborhood playhouse when I was 16. I told them I was 18. I wasn't. And I went for 2 years and worked there. And that was a wonderful experience. And then I studied, I wanted to study with, well, first of all, I studied with Uta Hagen in New York. And then I wanted to study with Lee Strasberg, and I got into his classes. And then I auditioned for the Actors Studio, and I got in there. Although none of that came very easily. I had to audition a number of times to get in. But I did. And that's lovely because you're a lifetime member, so I'm still a member.
Ah,
and
yeah. So what would have been your first sort of major role?
I did a lot of plays in New York. I did a play. One of the first jobs I had was with Margaret Truman in Bergen Mall. And what was amazing was Harry Truman came to see us. And that was exciting. He was thrilling to meet. We had dinner. And the play was pretty silly. The director quit before we opened and told us all to follow the directions in the French copy. And I did. I did exactly what it said. Go behind the chair. I went behind the chair. And my mother came backstage at intermission and said, Joanna, I can't see your face. You have to put on more makeup. So one of the other actresses in the company showed me how to put on, and it was a huge house. I mean, for a young person who had never really been in the theater, here I was playing to an enormous house, and I didn't know what to do, But that was fine. I loved it.
Yeah. What do you enjoy about theatre work?
Well, you have 4 weeks rehearsal, which is lovely because you work on the role and you invent things and bring up questions about the material. And then when you actually perform, you're performing in front of an audience, and you get their response to what you're doing, and that's lovely. I mean, that's nice to have that back and forth between you and the audience. In film, you don't usually get very much rehearsal, a little bit. And then you sort of have to come in with it all set up, because a lot of times you're just blocked in, and you need to bring your performance with you. And there isn't a lot of questioning or that kind of thing. I mean, if it's a good film, yes, you get rehearsal, and then you have that conversation. But a lot of the television shows, it's just really quick. You arrive, and you are the person, and you bring them what you thought up at home. So it's different. I don't know what else to say.
You, in I think it was 1973, won an Emmy Award for your role as Laura in The Glass Menagerie. Now, how did that feel, winning an Emmy?
It was lovely, and the whole experience was just marvelous. I admired Katharine Hepburn enormously, and I had actually seen a film of African Queen the week before I got the job, and I thought, I'd love to work with her. And then there I was, flying to London to be in this play with her, with Sam Waterston and Michael Moriarty, and they're both wonderful actors. And it was just a great experience. We shot in London, and we were given, people treated us as if we were wonderfully special people. We got invited everywhere, rode around town in limousines. And I was so surprised that in London, people's cottage cheese and yogurt and milk were left on the doorstep, and no one stole it. And I thought that was really amazing.
That wouldn't happen now.
No, no. And the policemen didn't carry guns, and I also thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It's a different world, Joanna.
Yes, it is.
Different world. Really yeah. Long gone.
Yes.
So you, I'm just going to name a few series that you featured in. You were one was Kojak, Dallas, Star Trek: The Next Generation, and ER. Any of those particularly that stand out for you, Joanna?
Well, the lovely thing about Star Trek is, of course, it was all of that high tech. You know, you thought that everything was, people were disappearing and you were flying through space. Well, what it really was at a studio with rafters above you and old men running up and down the rafters pulling the sets up and down on ropes. And I just thought that was unbelievably wonderful. And I had a son who was maybe 8 or 9 at the time, and I brought him to the set and at lunch, and the fellows did this for my son so that he could see things come and go and disappear, and you think you're in a spaceship or you're going through space, you know. And they were just manipulating the sets, you know. And that was lovely. Also, it's a show that still carries, I play a character called Previn, and she's a human. And I'm, Mark Leonard was the person I was married to, and he was the father of, what's his name? You know.
Was it Spock?
Yeah, Spock.
Yeah.
So that meant I was Spock's stepmother or fourth stepmother or something.
Right.
And whenever I've done plays here and things, people come and they're just so excited to meet this creature that I was. Now that I'm older, I don't look like that anymore. I look like an older woman, and maybe they don't recognize me as readily. But in the early days after I did it, I could hardly go anywhere that somebody didn't come up to me and say, "Oh, you're," and that was fun.
Yeah. No, I understand. From what I read here about you, Joanna, is that we will be talking about the Hulk in a moment, but you had worked with Bill prior to that in the series The Magician, of which he was the main star.
Right. I could be wrong about this, and I looked it up this week. I thought that I also did Medical Center, and I thought he was the star of Medical Center, but I looked it up, and it's not him.
It's not him, no.
I'm not sure. It was at MGM, and that was exciting because I, as an actress from New York, had always heard about, Betty Davis and Katharine Hepburn and all those people working at that studio, and you walk through the gate and you think of yourself as being one of them. And Bill Bixby was so kind to me. I didn't know anybody here, and he had a special lunch brought in at our lunchtime to make me feel welcome at the studio and part of the show. He was a really nice man, and he had a tragedy. I always thought that was so sad that his son and he was separated from his wife, and she went on a holiday with their son, and the boy got sick, and he died. And Bill was heartbroken. And then his wife, she was no longer his wife, but I think she killed herself. She was so torn, and the whole thing was so tragic for them both. But after that, I did, I'm not even sure in the timeline. I think I did the Hulk before that all happened. And the Hulk was, we were at tours like they do now. They had just started the tours, and people would go around in almost just a small cart and talk about the actors that were working here and this was going on there, and they would have tourists in the cart, and we were all annoyed because you'd be working and then this cart would go by and somebody would be on a microphone saying, and here's the cast of so-and-so, you know. And then, of course, now it's a huge business and they do it all the time. The other thing that I thought was fun about the place was that Wasserman, who was the head of the studio's wife, ran what went on. And one of the things she insisted on was that the makeup people would bring their empty Kleenex boxes back to the makeup studio, which was on a hill up. Everybody went to the same place to get made up. And I always thought, goodness, you know, I mean, empty Kleenex boxes? Just to make sure that no one was taking anything.
Can you remember, Joanna, where the actual building was? You know, where the hospital was situated. Was that on set, or was that an actual real location?
Oh no, it was on a set. It was in a studio.
Yeah.
I don't remember where. No. I mean, I sort of have an image in my mind, but I'm sure it means nothing. I wouldn't remember. I worked there a lot, and I went in different shows and different. We didn't travel that much in those days, you know. We worked at the studio. You go from one studio to another studio for different shows. And then slowly towards the end of that, we started going on location. But mostly we worked in the studio.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, on the stages.
On the stages, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you remember? Have you any memories of your fellow cast in that? You had Philip Abbott as Dr. Morrow, the main protagonist.
Right. And Lou Ferrigno, of course.
As the Hulk, of course. Yes. Who saves you?
Yes.
Yeah.
The only thing that bothered me about that was that his whole body was covered with green dye. I mean, green makeup. And I used to think that wasn't very healthy. I mean, for a man to put that stuff on himself every day, I was surprised that he lived to be rather an old man.
Yeah.
I don't know how long he lived, but he didn't get sick.
Yeah, it can't have been good over a length of time like that, can it? I mean...
Yeah, can't be good for you, you know. But no one thought of that in those days, because that kind of thing wasn't of any interest, you know.
So, yeah, what do you remember of Philip Abbott?
Very little. Nothing, actually.
Oh.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but it's not because he wasn't perfectly fine. It was just because I did an awful lot of work in those days, and it all kind of melds together.
Yeah.
I don't remember, you know.
But there was a scene. I mean, it was good because when you were acting with Bill, and you did in quite a few scenes. It was interesting because there was, the storyline was that, there was this, Morrow was, conducting these kind of experiments on the patients.
Right.
To curb their aggressive nature and stuff like that. But it was kind of, morally kind of dodgy. And of course Bill had, been snooping around and found too much out.
Right.
And they kind of dosed him up with a load of, drugs to make him passive. But it was interesting. You were going visiting him and stuff like that. And more he's trying to plead with you to, look into Morrow's work.
Right.
Find this videotape of the sessions he's been doing with the patients,
right.
which will inevitably, take, pull him to task, take him to task, and he will be found out. Initially,
right, exactly.
But initially you're skeptical, But the more it goes on, it's interesting. You start leaning to more towards David's reasoning.
Right.
And
I see the tape too.
yeah. And there's a wonderful scene where you come in and he thinks you're going to stick an injection in him again.
Right.
Yet yet you stick it into the pillow and you kind of give him a knowing nod and then you loosen the strap on his arm to help him get out, you know.
Right.
And you think, yeah, that's the moment, you know. It was just really lovely played, that was, you know.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Do you remember that at all, doing those things?
You know, it's funny when you watch. I don't know how much I remember. You know, I remember moments here and there, but I don't remember. Oh, I was sort of surprised. I haven't looked at my old films in a long time, and I went and looked at this because I knew I was going to be talking with you. And so I looked at it, and I thought, isn't it interesting that I actually did that, and I'm there, I can see myself, but I don't have a memory of all of it. You know, that I think that's odd. You know, I think if you have a trial and you have people having to say, I did this 30 years ago, how can you hold on to that at all?
Yeah.
Because what do you really remember, you know? And, I mean, it's not like I have faulty memory. I don't. But it's interesting. I'm going to look at some other films and see what I think, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what do you, I mean, what memories do you have of working with Bill Bixby?
Well, what I remember most is that he was such a nice and generous man. And that isn't always true, you know. A lot of times when people become the stars of these shows, you know, sometimes they're lovely. But a lot of times they're exhausted and they just go from show to show and you're just one more person coming on the set. But he wasn't that way at all. I regret something. Years later, my husband was producing a magic show, and Bill was the host. And I was into photography at the time, and I'd been hired by the network, I don't even remember which one it was, to shoot the show. And I had all my camera equipment and everything, and I was doing my job. And I never went up to Bill. And, you know, it's too late now. But I feel so bad about that. You know, he had been so lovely to me, and I should have gone up to him. And I don't think he knew that I was that person. He didn't know that I was shooting the show.
Yeah.
So he had no reason to come up to me. And we were in a theater, and I was at the back of the house, and he was on the stage, so he didn't really even see me, you know. But maybe I was shy, because I was still working as an actress. Maybe I felt like this isn't my real job, so maybe I shouldn't go and, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. But I didn't. He died. He was quite young, too. That's the other thing I've noticed.
He was.
He was like
yeah.
56 or something, and he had worked an enormous amount. But I don't think he ever got over losing his son. I think that haunted him.
I think he was 59 when he died.
I wasn't sure. I knew it was 50-something.
Yeah.
But,
but it is way too young, you know.
it is, you know. We're all living a lot longer now.
Yes, it seems to be the consensus now, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yes, yes. And you better save your money, otherwise, what are you going to live on?
Yeah. You just don't know, do you, Joanna? You know. So what are you currently doing, Joanna? What are you working on?
I have two things. One is I've been writing plays. I am fascinated by that. I have the good fortune as an actress to have worked with a lot of the great American playwrights, or not only American. I worked with Lamford Wilson, Arthur Miller, Tom Stoppard, Wendy Wasserstein. I mean, it's just by, I got on a kind of run of, after Glass Menagerie, of being hired. I got hired, I did a mini-series with Betty Davis after Glass Menagerie, and that we went to Ohio, and we were there for months, and it never stopped raining. But I became interested in writing, and so I ran a playwrights group for about 9 years here in L.A., and then I got into the Actors Studios playwrights group, and so I worked there. And now I've written a play that I'm quite proud of. I've written a number of plays, but this one I like, and I hope I'll get it on. And then the other thing I'm involved with at the moment is about 2 years ago, I did a play called Front Door Open, and I won the Best Actress Award for it. And that writer has written a sequel to that play, and I think it's charming and funny and quite silly, the play. But with this difficult time, it's nice to be in something that's silly,
Oh, sure.
It is.
we all need that. I think we all need that little escape route, that little light relief, don't we?
Yeah. Yes.
From all the horrible things. Yeah.
Yes. To have a good laugh is wonderful,
Yes,
so
very.
I'm looking forward to that.
Great medicine, isn't it? Laughter, yeah.
Yes.
Well, Joanna, I want to thank you for joining me and sharing some stories about the roles you've been in and discussing, the Incredible Hulk. And I'm very grateful to you for joining me.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm glad we finally connected with each other.
Yes, it was a little bit, it was a little bit hairy for a while there, but
Great.
but we got there, yeah.
All right.
Well,
thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Joanna. Thank you so much. And thank you guys also for listening to this. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be back with another Incredible Hulk podcast very soon indeed. So until then, take care.
You too. Thank you.